Chapter 10. The Caravan of Gold. The stars shine brightly above the Sahara. The desert stretches endlessly beneath the moonlight. The air is cool. The winds are gentle. And somewhere across the sands, a caravan continues its steady journey. Thousands of footsteps move across the desert. Camels sway back and forth beneath the stars. Lanterns glow softly in the darkness. The great pilgrimage of Mansa Musa moves forward, day after day, night after night. The travelers continue toward their destination. But now, something unusual is beginning to happen. People are starting to notice. Stories are beginning to spread. Because this is no ordinary caravan. This is one of the most remarkable journeys the world has ever seen. Tonight, let us travel alongside the famous caravan of gold. Imagine standing on a dune overlooking the desert. The moon hangs low in the sky. The sand glows silver and gold. At first, everything appears quiet. Then, far in the distance, movement catches your eye. A long line stretches across the horizon, then another, and another. The closer it comes, the more astonishing it becomes. This is not a small group of travelers. It is an enormous procession. Thousands of people moving together across the Sahara. The scale alone is difficult to imagine. Historians have debated the exact numbers for centuries. Some accounts describe tens of thousands of people accompanying Musa on his pilgrimage. Servants, officials, soldiers, scholars, guides, attendants, workers, religious travelers. The caravan seemed almost endless. Imagine standing beside the route as it passes. Minutes go by, then more minutes. Yet people continue appearing. The line stretches farther than the eye can see. You begin to wonder if the entire empire of Mali decided to go on vacation at the same time. The sight would have been unforgettable. And then there were the camels. Hundreds upon hundreds of camels. Each one carefully loaded for the journey. Some carried food. Some carried water, some carried supplies, but many carried something far more valuable. Gold, a tremendous amount of gold. Gold dust, gold bars, gold ornaments, gold gifts, gold packed into containers and bags. Gold destined to travel across Africa. The wealth of Mali was already famous. But now people could see it with their own eyes. And what they saw left them amazed. Imagine moonlight reflecting off containers filled with precious metal. Imagine rows of camels carrying treasure through the darkness. Imagine travelers whispering to one another as they witness the spectacle. Stories begin immediately, because human beings have always enjoyed telling stories. Especially when those stories involve unbelievable amounts of gold. The news travels ahead of the caravan. Merchants hear about it. Travelers hear about it. Villages along the route hear about it. People begin discussing the wealthy king from Mali. The king with the enormous caravan. The king whose camels carry gold across the desert. The king whose pilgrimage seems larger than life. And with each retelling, the stories become even bigger. History has always worked that way. Someone sees 20 camels. The next person hears about 40. A week later, someone is describing 200. By the following month, the camels have apparently formed their own kingdom. Fortunately for Mansa Musa, the truth was already impressive enough. No exaggeration needed. The caravan genuinely was extraordinary. As it crossed the Sahara, it became a moving symbol of Mali's power and prosperity. Yet something interesting happened. The gold attracted attention. But so did the organization, the discipline, the scale of the operation. Think about what it took to keep thousands of people moving through one of the harshest environments on Earth. Food had to be distributed. Water had to be managed carefully. Routes had to be followed. Animals needed care. Camp had to be established every evening. This was not simply wealth on display. It was logistics on a grand scale. The entire journey required planning, leadership, and cooperation. Every person played a role. Every task mattered. The caravan moved like a living city crossing the desert. During the day, the travelers marched beneath the sun. The heat could be intense. The sand stretched endlessly before them. Yet the journey continued, steady, patient, purposeful. Then came evening, perhaps the most beautiful time of all. The sun slipped below the horizon. The sky turned orange and gold, then purple, then deep blue. The stars emerged one by one. Campfires flickered across the desert. Thousands of travelers settled in for the night. The camels rested. The conversation softened. The winds moved gently through the dunes. Imagine looking across the campsite. Lanterns glow like tiny stars scattered upon the earth. People gather in small groups. Some pray. Some share meals. Some tell stories. Some simply sit quietly and admire the sky. The atmosphere feels peaceful, almost magical. For many travelers, these evenings became treasured memories, moments of rest beneath one of the most beautiful skies on earth. And as the caravan moved farther north, the stories continued spreading. People spoke of the ruler from Mali, the wealthy king crossing the desert, the king whose generosity would soon become legendary, the king who carried enough gold to astonish entire cities. News traveled surprisingly fast in the medieval world, not through phones, not through television, not through social media. Instead, news traveled through people, merchants, travelers, scholars, pilgrims. A single conversation could carry information hundreds of miles, and conversations about Mansa Musa were becoming increasingly common. In markets across North Africa, people began hearing rumors. Some dismissed them. Surely no king could be that wealthy. Surely no caravan could be that large. Surely these stories were exaggerated. Then more travelers arrived, and they reported the same thing. The caravan was real. The gold was real. The king was real. The amazement continued growing. Little by little, a legend was being born. Not the kind of legend filled with dragons or magical powers, but something perhaps even more remarkable. A real person, a real journey, a real empire, so prosperous that it seemed almost unbelievable. As another night settles across the Sahara, the caravan rests beneath the stars. The camels lie quietly in the sand. The campfires glow softly. The moon illuminates the dunes. The travelers sleep peacefully after another long day. Tomorrow the journey will continue. Tomorrow the stories will spread even farther. Tomorrow more people will hear about the king from Mali. The king with the golden caravan. The king whose pilgrimage is already becoming the stuff of legend. For now, though, there is only the desert, only the stars, only the gentle sounds of the night. And beneath the moonlit sky, the caravan of gold continues its slow and steady journey across history itself. Chapter 11. Cairo and the king who gave too much. The desert journey continues. The great caravan of gold moves steadily across the sands. Day after day, the travelers march beneath the sun. Night after night, they sleep beneath the stars. The Sahara stretches behind them. The horizon slowly changes. And at last, after weeks of travel, something remarkable appears. A city. A great city. A city unlike anything many members of the caravan have ever seen. Tonight, we arrive in Cairo, one of the most important cities in the medieval world. A place of markets, scholars, rulers, merchants, and travelers from every direction. And a place that would never forget the visit of Mansa Musa. Because what happened here would become one of the most famous stories in African history. A story involving generosity, gold, and a lesson that sometimes it is actually possible to be a little too generous. Imagine yourself approaching Cairo in the early morning. The sun rises over the city. The buildings glow with golden light. The streets are already busy. Merchants prepare their stalls. Craftsmen begin their work. Travelers arrive through the city gates. The sounds of daily life fill the air. Cairo was enormous compared to many cities of its time. People from different cultures lived there. Different languages could be heard in the markets. Goods arrived from Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. It was one of the great crossroads of the world. And now, word has spread. The famous king from Mali is approaching. The king with the giant caravan. The king whose camels carry gold. The king whose wealth seems impossible to measure. People are curious. Very curious. The closer Musa gets, the larger the crowds become. Merchants whisper to one another. Travelers share stories. Children try to catch a glimpse of the arriving caravan. The excitement grows with every passing hour. And then the caravan enters the city. Imagine the scene. Thousands of travelers moving through the streets. Camels stretching into the distance. Officials accompanying the king. Servants carrying supplies. Gold everywhere. The sight is astonishing. People stop what they are doing just to watch. The stories they heard suddenly become real. And somehow, the reality is even more impressive than the rumors. News of Musa's arrival quickly reaches the rulers of Egypt. Meetings are arranged. Greetings are exchanged. Diplomacy begins. Musa is no longer simply a traveler. He is one of the most powerful rulers in the world, representing one of the wealthiest empires on earth. His visit carries enormous significance. Imagine the conversations taking place. Officials discussing trade. Leaders discussing politics. Scholars exchanging ideas. Representatives learning about lands they may never visit themselves. The arrival of the Mali caravan becomes one of the major events in the city. But what truly makes this chapter famous is not diplomacy. It is generosity. You see, Mansa Musa believed in giving. He believed in charity. He believed in helping others. These values were important to him. And during his pilgrimage, he put those values into practice on a very large scale, an extremely large scale, the kind of scale that makes accountants nervous. As Musa moved through Cairo, he distributed gold generously. He gave gifts. He helped the poor. He rewarded those who assisted the caravan. He shared wealth wherever he went. To many people, his generosity seemed endless. Imagine receiving gold from the richest king in the world. You would probably remember that moment. Many people certainly did. Throughout the city, stories began spreading. People talked about the king from Mali, who gave away gold as though it were ordinary grain. The king who seemed eager to help everyone he met. The king whose generosity appeared limitless. And honestly, it must have seemed unbelievable. Most rulers protected their wealth carefully. Musa shared his. The people of Cairo were amazed. The merchants were amazed. The travelers were amazed. Everyone seemed to be talking about the same thing. The gold. More specifically, all the gold entering the city. Now here is where the story becomes especially interesting. Because something unexpected happened. Something historians still discuss today. There was so much gold being distributed that it actually affected the local economy. Yes, you heard that correctly. Musa brought so much wealth into Cairo that it influenced the value of gold itself. Imagine a marketplace where a certain item is rare. Because it is rare, it has high value. Then suddenly enormous amounts of that item appear everywhere. Its value begins to change. This is essentially what happened. Gold became more common. Prices shifted. Markets adjusted. The effects lasted for years. Some historians believe the impact remained noticeable long after Musa left the city. It is one of the few times in history when a single person's generosity influenced an entire regional economy. That is a sentence very few people can claim. Most of us struggle to influence the office vending machine. Mansa Musa influenced the price of gold. History can be quite dramatic sometimes. Of course, Musa did not intend to create economic complications. His goal was generosity. His goal was charity. His goal was fulfilling his responsibilities as a faithful pilgrim. Yet the sheer scale of his wealth made his actions extraordinary. The king from Mali possessed resources beyond what most people could imagine. And now the world was beginning to realize just how wealthy he truly was. The story spread quickly. Merchants carried them north. Travelers carried them east. Scholars repeated them in distant cities. The tale of the wealthy African king crossed borders and continents. Each retelling increased his reputation. People who had never seen Mali suddenly wanted to learn more. Where was this kingdom? How could it be so wealthy? Who was this ruler who traveled with so much gold? Questions multiplied. Curiosity grew. The world was paying attention. And for the first time, many people outside Africa began to understand the incredible wealth and sophistication of the Mali Empire. Musa had become an ambassador without even trying. His journey was teaching the world about his homeland. As evening settles over Cairo, the city begins to quiet. The markets close. The crowds disperse. Lanterns glow along the streets. The sounds of the day gradually fade. Somewhere within the city, Mansa Musa prepares for the next stage of his pilgrimage. The road to Mecca still lies ahead. The journey is not finished, but already history has been made. The king from Mali has arrived. The gold has been shared. The stories have begun. And those stories will continue traveling long after the caravan moves on. Beneath the moonlit skies of Cairo, a legend is growing. A legend carried by merchants, by travelers, by scholars, and by everyone fortunate enough to witness the visit of the king who gave too much gold away. The richest man in history is still moving forward, and the world will never forget it. Chapter 12. Journey to the Holy City. The moon hangs quietly above the rooftops of Cairo. The lanterns glow softly along the streets. The markets have settled into silence. Most of the city sleeps. Yet somewhere nearby, preparations are once again underway. Because Mansa Musa's journey is not finished. Not yet. The famous king from Mali has crossed the Sahara. He has amazed merchants. He has astonished rulers. He has given away so much gold that people will talk about it for generations. But all of that was only part of the journey. The true destination still lies ahead. Tonight, we continue traveling with Mansa Musa as he makes his way toward one of the most sacred places in the world, the holy city of Mecca. As always, settle in comfortably. Imagine the stars above, the desert stretching peacefully around you, and a long road leading toward a place filled with meaning. The caravan departs Cairo. Once again, the travelers gather. Camels are prepared. Supplies are loaded. The road stretches into the distance. The city slowly fades behind them. Ahead lies Arabia. Ahead lies Mecca. For many travelers, this portion of the pilgrimage carried special significance. The journey was no longer simply about crossing deserts. It was about approaching a sacred destination, a place they had dreamed of visiting for years, perhaps even their entire lives. Imagine walking day after day toward a place that holds deep spiritual meaning, a place you have heard about since childhood, a place connected to faith, prayer, and history. Each step feels important. Each mile brings you closer. For many pilgrims, the journey itself became part of the experience. The road offered time for reflection, time for gratitude, time for prayer, time to think about life. And Mansa Musa was no exception. Despite his immense wealth and power, he was still a pilgrim, a traveler on a sacred journey, a man seeking something greater than gold. There is something interesting about long journeys. After enough days on the road, your mind begins to slow down. The distractions of daily life fall away. The endless lists of things to do disappear. The noise becomes quieter. The world becomes simpler. Walk, rest, pray, continue. Many travelers throughout history have described this feeling. The road changes you, not all at once, not dramatically, but little by little, one day at a time. Imagine Musa riding through the desert. The sun rises over the horizon. The sky glows with soft colors. The caravan moves steadily forward. The sounds of the journey become familiar. The footsteps, the wind, the gentle movement of the camels. Perhaps these moments provided opportunities for reflection. After all, he ruled one of the largest empires in Africa. His responsibilities were enormous. His wealth was legendary. Yet here, far from his kingdom, he had time to think. Time to consider the path that had brought him here. Time to reflect on faith. Time to reflect on leadership. Time to reflect on life itself. Throughout history, pilgrimages have often served this purpose. They are not simply journeys from one location to another. They are opportunities for transformation, opportunities to grow, opportunities to return home with a deeper understanding of oneself. The destination matters, but the journey matters too. As the caravan moves onward, the travelers encounter other pilgrims, people from many different lands, different languages, different cultures, different backgrounds, yet all traveling toward the same sacred place. There is something beautiful about that. People who might never otherwise meet suddenly find themselves sharing the same road, the same destination, the same purpose. Imagine a conversation taking place beside a campfire. One traveler comes from North Africa, another comes from Arabia, another comes from West Africa. Their homes are separated by thousands of miles, yet here they sit together beneath the same stars, sharing stories, sharing meals, sharing experiences. The pilgrimage creates connections. It reminds people how large the world is, and at the same time, how connected humanity can be. As the days pass, excitement begins to build. The holy city grows closer. The anticipation becomes stronger. For many pilgrims, simply thinking about Mecca fills them with emotion. They have traveled incredible distances. They have crossed deserts, faced challenges, endured long weeks on the road, and now they are nearing their destination. Imagine the moment when word spreads through the caravan. We are getting close. The atmosphere changes. People smile. Conversations become more animated. The journey suddenly feels very real. The destination is no longer a distant dream. It is almost within reach. Eventually, the sacred city appears. For countless pilgrims throughout history, this moment became unforgettable. The first glimpse of Mecca, the realization that the journey is complete, the understanding that they have arrived. Imagine the emotions felt throughout the caravan. Relief, gratitude, joy, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of peace. For Mansa Musa, this moment must have been especially meaningful. The ruler of a great empire, the richest man many historians believe ever lived. Yet standing here, none of those titles truly mattered. What mattered was faith. What mattered was devotion. What mattered was completing a sacred obligation. In moments like these, wealth becomes less important. Power becomes less important. Status becomes less important. The pilgrimage reminds everyone of something simple. Human beings share many of the same hopes, the same questions, the same search for meaning. And perhaps that is one reason pilgrimages have remained important for so many centuries. They invite people to step away from ordinary life, to slow down, to reflect, to reconnect with what matters most. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage would become famous because of the gold, because of the caravan, because of the incredible wealth. History loves those details, and they are certainly remarkable. But the deeper story is something quieter. A king making a sacred journey, a believer expressing devotion, a traveler seeking spiritual fulfillment. Sometimes the most important parts of history are not the loudest. Sometimes they are the quiet moments, the moments of reflection, the moments of growth, the moments that happen inside a person's heart. As evening settles over the holy city, the atmosphere becomes peaceful. The journey that began in Mali has reached its destination. The stars appear overhead once again, the same stars that watched the caravan cross the Sahara, the same stars that shone over Cairo, the same stars that guided travelers across the desert. Now they shine above Mecca. The road has been long. The journey has been meaningful. And though many adventures still lie ahead, something important has changed. Mansa Musa arrived as a king, but like many pilgrims before him, he leaves carrying something more valuable than gold: experience, perspective, reflection, and a deeper connection to the faith that inspired the journey in the first place. Tonight, the road grows quiet. The sacred city rests beneath the stars, and the pilgrim king finds peace at the end of a remarkable journey. Chapter 13. The Return Home. The stars shine quietly above the holy city. The pilgrimage has been completed. The prayers have been offered. The sacred destination has been reached. For many travelers, this would be the end of the story. But for Mansa Musa, another important journey still remains: the journey home. Tonight, we follow the great king as he begins the long road back to Mali. A road filled with reflection, a road filled with new ideas, and a road that will help transform an empire. As always, settle in comfortably. Imagine a gentle breeze moving through the night air, the stars glowing overhead, and a caravan preparing for one final great journey. There is something special about returning home after a long trip. The road feels different. When you first leave home, everything feels new. Every village is unfamiliar. Every landscape is a discovery. Every turn brings a surprise. But on the journey home, your thoughts often change. You begin remembering familiar places. You think about family. You think about the people waiting for you. You begin imagining what home will feel like when you finally arrive. Mansa Musa likely experienced many of those same feelings. The pilgrimage had taken him far from Mali, far from the Niger River, far from the cities and villages of his empire. Now at last, he was heading back. The caravan once again gathered supplies. The travelers prepared themselves. The camels were loaded. And slowly the journey began. The road stretched before them, long, dusty, endless. But now the destination was home. The great king traveled with something far more valuable than gold: knowledge. Because one of the remarkable things about travel is that it changes people. When you visit new places, you encounter new ideas, new customs, new ways of thinking, new perspectives, and Mansa Musa had seen a great deal during his pilgrimage. He had visited important cities. He had spoken with rulers. He had met merchants and scholars. He had observed different societies. And all of those experiences left an impression. Imagine sitting beside the campfire one evening. The travelers rest after a long day. The stars appear overhead. Someone begins discussing architecture. Another person speaks about education. Another shares knowledge about science or law. Ideas flow as freely as conversation. The pilgrimage had become more than a religious journey. It had become a journey of learning. And Musa listened carefully. One of the most important things he brought home was not an object. It was people. You see, during his travels, Musa met scholars from different parts of the Islamic world. Men who possessed knowledge in religion, law, mathematics, literature, and education. These scholars helped preserve and spread learning. Musa understood their value. Knowledge strengthens a kingdom. Education strengthens a kingdom. Wisdom strengthens a kingdom. So some scholars agreed to travel with him. Imagine the conversations taking place during the journey. A scholar discussing astronomy beneath a sky filled with stars. A teacher sharing lessons from distant lands. A student eager to learn. Ideas moving from one person to another, one generation to the next. The caravan becomes a moving classroom, and Musa absorbs as much knowledge as possible. But scholars were not the only people traveling with him. The king also encountered skilled architects and builders. These craftsmen possessed knowledge about construction, design, and engineering. They understood how to create impressive buildings, mosques, schools, public spaces, structures that could serve communities for generations. Musa immediately saw their potential. Imagine standing beside a magnificent building and realizing something important. This could exist in Mali too. That simple thought can change history. Because progress often begins when someone sees a possibility and decides to bring it home. Throughout the journey, plans began forming in Musa's mind. Plans for the future, plans for his kingdom, plans for growth. Imagine him riding through the desert while thinking about what he had learned. The rhythm of the camel steady beneath him, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead, the stars appearing each night, and all the while, ideas taking shape. How could education be expanded? How could cities continue growing? How could Mali become even stronger? How could knowledge be preserved for future generations? The answers would come later. But the seeds had already been planted. And seeds have a remarkable habit of growing. The farther the caravan traveled, the closer home became. Weeks passed. The desert slowly gave way to more familiar landscapes. The travelers recognized places they had seen before. The route felt less mysterious. The anticipation grew stronger. Everyone knew they were getting closer. Imagine the excitement spreading through the caravan. Conversations become more animated. Smiles appear more frequently. People begin sharing plans for when they arrive. Families look forward to reunions. Friends look forward to seeing one another again. The long journey is finally nearing its end. And then one day, the familiar lands of Mali begin to appear. The sight must have been emotional. The rivers, the villages, the fields, the landscape of home. After months of travel, There is nothing quite like seeing familiar ground again. The empire welcomes its king. The people celebrate his return. Stories of the pilgrimage spread quickly. The journey has become legendary. People want to hear everything. The holy cities, the great desert, the rulers he met, the scholars he encountered, the gold he distributed, the adventures along the road. Every detail fascinates them. Yet something deeper has happened. Musa has returned changed, not completely different. Still the same ruler, still the same person, but wiser, more experienced, more knowledgeable. Travel often does that. It broadens our understanding of the world. It helps us see new possibilities. And for a king, that can have enormous consequences. Because now, Musa begins putting his new ideas into action. The scholars who arrived with him begin sharing knowledge. The architects begin planning projects. The kingdom begins preparing for a new chapter. The pilgrimage is over, but its impact is only beginning. Imagine standing beside the Niger River as evening falls. The water flows quietly beneath the setting sun. The air feels calm. The stars begin appearing overhead. The king looks out across his empire. A kingdom already wealthy. A kingdom already powerful. Yet now filled with even greater potential. The road home has ended. But another journey is beginning. A journey of growth. A journey of learning. A journey that will help transform Mali into one of the greatest centers of knowledge and culture in the world. The caravan has returned. The king is home. The future waits patiently ahead. And beneath the peaceful night sky, the next golden chapter of Mali's story is about to unfold. Chapter 14. Building a Golden Age. The Niger River flows quietly beneath the evening sky. The stars begin appearing overhead. A gentle breeze moves through the grasslands of Mali, and somewhere in the distance, a hammer taps softly against stone. Tap, tap, tap. It is a simple sound, a peaceful sound. Yet it signals something important. The empire of Mali is changing, growing, building, dreaming bigger than ever before. Mansa Musa has returned home from his pilgrimage. The long journey across the Sahara is behind him. The holy city has been visited. The scholars have arrived. The architects have arrived. The ideas have arrived. And now those ideas are beginning to take shape. Tonight, we enter one of the most exciting periods in Mali's history. A time historians often describe as a golden age. Imagine standing beside Mansa Musa as he looks across his kingdom. The empire is already wealthy. Gold flows through its trade routes. Its cities are growing. Its markets are busy. Its people are prosperous. Many rulers would look at such success and decide their work was finished. Perhaps they would spend their days relaxing beside a river, maybe taking very long naps, possibly becoming professional cloud watchers. But Musa had bigger plans. He wanted to build something lasting, something that would continue serving the people long after he was gone. He wanted Mali to become known not only for gold, he wanted it to become known for learning, culture, knowledge, achievement, and so construction began. Across the empire, workers gathered. Builders prepared materials. Architects drew plans. Communities organized projects. The sounds of growth could be heard everywhere. Imagine walking through a city during this period. You hear workers shaping bricks. You hear craftsmen discussing designs. You see people carrying supplies. New structures begin rising from the earth. Everywhere there is movement. Everywhere there is purpose. One of Musa's greatest priorities was the construction of mosques. These places served as centers of worship, but they also became centers of community life. People gathered there, prayed there, learned there, shared ideas there. The mosques helped strengthen both the spiritual and cultural foundations of the empire. Imagine a newly completed mosque standing beneath the African sun. Its walls glow warmly in the light. The architecture reflects influences gathered from distant lands, yet it remains connected to Mali itself. The building becomes more than stone and clay. It becomes a symbol of faith, a symbol of learning, a symbol of the future. One famous example was the Jingwereber Mosque in Timbuktu. Built with the assistance of skilled architects, it became one of the city's most important landmarks. Generations would pass through its doors. Students, teachers, travelers, scholars. The building would help shape the intellectual life of the region for centuries. But Musa's vision extended beyond religious buildings. He understood something important. A kingdom's future depends on education. Gold can make a nation wealthy. Knowledge helps keep it strong. This idea guided many of his decisions. Schools began expanding. Learning became increasingly important. Scholars found support. Students found opportunities. The seeds planted during Musa's pilgrimage were beginning to grow. Imagine a young student entering a school for the first time. The room is simple. The atmosphere is calm. Teachers share knowledge. Students listen carefully. Questions are asked. Ideas are explored. Every lesson becomes an investment in the future. Because education is one of the few treasures that grows when shared. The more knowledge spreads, the stronger a society becomes. Musa understood this well, and so he encouraged learning throughout his empire. As more scholars arrived, intellectual life flourished. People studied religion, history, law, mathematics, language, astronomy. Knowledge flowed through Mali much like the Niger River itself. Steady, powerful, life-giving. The growth of learning also attracted more visitors. Scholars traveled from distant regions. Teachers exchanged ideas. Students sought opportunities. The empire became increasingly connected to the wider world. And nowhere was this transformation more visible than in Timbuktu. The city continued growing as a center of knowledge. Libraries expanded. Collections of manuscripts increased. Conversations filled classrooms and courtyards. Ideas traveled from one generation to the next. Imagine walking through Timbuktu during this period. The streets are busy but peaceful. Merchants conduct business nearby. Students carry books. Teachers lead discussions. Travelers arrive from distant lands. The city feels alive with curiosity, alive with possibility, alive with learning. And perhaps that is one of the most remarkable things about Mali's golden age. It was not built on gold alone. It was built on ideas. The wealth helped make growth possible. But knowledge gave that growth purpose. Meanwhile, culture flourished throughout the empire. Music continued filling the evenings. Storytellers continued sharing wisdom. Artists continued creating beautiful works. Communities celebrated traditions passed down through generations. The empire's prosperity supported creativity, and creativity strengthened the culture. Imagine a village gathering beneath the stars. Musicians play softly. Children listen to stories. Families laugh together. The firelight dances across smiling faces. The scene feels timeless. Simple, human, beautiful. Because a golden age is not only measured by buildings and wealth, it is measured by quality of life, by opportunity, by culture, by the things that bring people together. Mali was becoming a place where all of these things could flourish. Of course, none of this happened overnight. Great achievements rarely do. The buildings took time. The schools took time. The libraries took time. The growth unfolded year by year, patiently, steadily, like a tree growing beside a river. The changes may have seemed small at first, but together they transformed the empire. As evening settles across Mali, imagine standing beside the Niger River. The water reflects the colors of the sunset. The sounds of distant construction drift through the air. A hammer taps softly somewhere beyond the horizon. Students study by lantern light. Scholars discuss ideas. Builders complete another section of a wall. The empire continues growing, not through conquest, not through fear, but through investment in people, investment in knowledge, investment in the future. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage brought more than memories. It brought inspiration. It brought vision. It brought new possibilities. And now those possibilities are becoming reality. The golden age of Mali is taking shape. One building, one school, one student, one idea at a time. The stars shine overhead. The river continues flowing. And beneath the peaceful African sky, one of history's greatest civilizations grows brighter with every passing year. R13. The return home. The stars shine quietly above the holy city. The pilgrimage has been completed. The prayers have been offered. The sacred destination has been reached. For many travelers, this would be the end of the story. But for Mansa Musa, another important journey still remains. The journey home. Tonight, we follow the great king as he begins the long road back to Mali. A road filled with reflection, a road filled with new ideas, and a road that will help transform an empire. As always, settle in comfortably. Imagine a gentle breeze moving through the night air, the stars glowing overhead, and a caravan preparing for one final great journey. There is something special about returning home after a long trip. The road feels different. When you first leave home, everything feels new. Every village is unfamiliar. Every landscape is a discovery. Every turn brings a surprise. But on the journey home, your thoughts often change. You begin remembering familiar places. You think about family. You think about the people waiting for you. You begin imagining what home will feel like when you finally arrive. Mansa Musa likely experienced many of those same feelings. The pilgrimage had taken him far from Mali, far from the Niger River, far from the cities and villages of his empire. Now at last, he was heading back. The caravan once again gathered supplies. The travelers prepared themselves. The camels were loaded. And slowly, the journey began. The road stretched before them, long, dusty, endless. But now the destination was home. The great king traveled with something far more valuable than gold. Knowledge. Because one of the remarkable things about travel is that it changes people. When you visit new places, you encounter new ideas, new customs, new ways of thinking, new perspectives, and Mansa Musa had seen a great deal during his pilgrimage. He had visited important cities. He had spoken with rulers. He had met merchants and scholars. He had observed different societies. And all of those experiences left an impression. Imagine sitting beside the campfire one evening. The travelers rest after a long day. The stars appear overhead. Someone begins discussing architecture. Another person speaks about education. Another shares knowledge about science or law. Ideas flow as freely as conversation. The pilgrimage had become more than a religious journey. It had become a journey of learning. And Musa listened carefully. One of the most important things he brought home was not an object. It was people. You see, during his travels, Musa met scholars from different parts of the Islamic world. Men who possessed knowledge in religion, law, mathematics, literature, and education. These scholars helped preserve and spread learning. Musa understood their value. Knowledge strengthens a kingdom. Education strengthens a kingdom. Wisdom strengthens a kingdom. So some scholars agreed to travel with him. Imagine the conversations taking place during the journey. A scholar discussing astronomy beneath a sky filled with stars. A teacher sharing lessons from distant lands. A student eager to learn. Ideas moving from one person to another, one generation to the next. The caravan becomes a moving classroom, and Musa absorbs as much knowledge as possible. But scholars were not the only people traveling with him. The king also encountered skilled architects and builders. These craftsmen possessed knowledge about construction, design, and engineering. They understood how to create impressive buildings, mosques, schools, public spaces, structures that could serve communities for generations. Musa immediately saw their potential. Imagine standing beside a magnificent building and realizing something important. This could exist in Mali too. That simple thought can change history. Because progress often begins when someone sees a possibility and decides to bring it home. Throughout the journey, plans began forming in Musa's mind. Plans for the future, plans for his kingdom, plans for growth. Imagine him riding through the desert while thinking about what he had learned. The rhythm of the camel steady beneath him, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead, the stars appearing each night, and all the while, ideas taking shape. How could education be expanded? How could cities continue growing? How could Mali become even stronger? How could knowledge be preserved for future generations? The answers would come later, But the seeds had already been planted, and seeds have a remarkable habit of growing. The farther the caravan traveled, the closer home became. Weeks passed. The desert slowly gave way to more familiar landscapes. The travelers recognized places they had seen before. The route felt less mysterious. The anticipation grew stronger. Everyone knew they were getting closer. Imagine the excitement spreading through the caravan. Conversations become more animated. Smiles appear more frequently. People begin sharing plans for when they arrive. Families look forward to reunions. Friends look forward to seeing one another again. The long journey is finally nearing its end. And then one day, the familiar lands of Mali begin to appear. The sight must have been emotional. The rivers, the villages, the fields, the landscape of home. After months of travel, there is nothing quite like seeing familiar ground again. The empire welcomes its king. The people celebrate his return. Stories of the pilgrimage spread quickly. The journey has become legendary. People want to hear everything. The holy cities, the great desert, the rulers he met, the scholars he encountered, the gold he distributed, the adventures along the road. Every detail fascinates them. Yet something deeper has happened. Musa has returned changed, not completely different. Still the same ruler, still the same person, but wiser, more experienced, more knowledgeable. Travel often does that. It broadens our understanding of the world. It helps us see new possibilities. And for a king, that can have enormous consequences. Because now, Musa begins putting his new ideas into action. The scholars who arrived with him begin sharing knowledge. The architects begin planning projects. The kingdom begins preparing for a new chapter. The pilgrimage is over, but its impact is only beginning. Imagine standing beside the Niger River as evening falls. The water flows quietly beneath the setting sun. The air feels calm. The stars begin appearing overhead. The king looks out across his empire. A kingdom already wealthy. A kingdom already powerful. Yet now filled with even greater potential. The road home has ended. But another journey is beginning. A journey of growth. A journey of learning. A journey that will help transform Mali into one of the greatest centers of knowledge and culture in the world. The caravan has returned. The king is home. The future waits patiently ahead. And beneath the peaceful night sky, the next golden chapter of Mali's story is about to unfold. Chapter 15. Timbuktu, City of Knowledge. The night settles softly over Timbuktu. The desert air is cool. The stars sparkle above the city. Lanterns glow in windows and courtyards. The busy sounds of the day have faded away. Merchants have closed their stalls. Travelers have found places to rest. And somewhere nearby a student turns the page of a manuscript by lantern light. It is a small sound, a quiet sound, but it represents something powerful. Knowledge. Tonight, we return to Timbuktu, not as a trading city, not as a stop along a caravan route, but as something even more remarkable, a city of learning, a city of books, a city that became one of the most famous centers of knowledge in the world. As always, Settle in comfortably. Imagine the warm glow of lantern light. Imagine shelves filled with ancient books. And imagine a city where learning became one of the greatest treasures of all. When many people think about wealth, they imagine gold. And certainly Mali had plenty of gold. Gold crossed its trade routes. Gold filled its markets. Gold helped support its prosperity. But during the reign of Mansa Musa, another treasure became increasingly important: knowledge. The king understood something that many great leaders throughout history have understood. Gold can disappear, buildings can crumble, empires can change. But knowledge has the power to survive. It can move from one person to another, one generation to another, one century to another, and Timbuktu became one of the places where that knowledge was preserved. Imagine walking through the city during its golden age. The streets are filled with activity. Students hurry between lessons. Teachers prepare lectures. Scholars discuss ideas in shaded courtyards. Books move from hand to hand. Everywhere you look, learning is taking place. The city feels alive with curiosity. And perhaps the most famous symbols of that curiosity were the libraries. Now, when people hear the word library today, they may imagine large buildings with computers and shelves filled with printed books. Timbuktu's libraries looked different. Yet their purpose was very much the same: to preserve knowledge, to share ideas, to help people learn. Imagine entering one of these libraries. The room is quiet. Lantern light flickers softly against the walls. Shelves hold carefully protected manuscripts. Some are beautifully written. Some are centuries old. Some contain religious teachings. Others contain history. Others contain science. Others contain law. Each manuscript represents countless hours of work, because every page had been copied by hand, every word written carefully, every book treated with respect. These collections became treasures, not treasures made of gold, treasures made of knowledge, and people traveled great distances to study them. One of the most remarkable things about Timbuktu was how many students came from different regions. Imagine a young student arriving after a long journey. Perhaps he has traveled across the Sahara. Perhaps he has come from another city within West Africa. Perhaps he has journeyed hundreds of miles just to study with respected teachers. The trip is difficult. The road is long. Yet he comes because Timbuktu has earned a reputation for excellence, a reputation for learning, a reputation for opportunity. Students arrived from many different lands, different languages, different cultures, different backgrounds. Yet they all shared something important: a desire to learn. And that desire helped transform the city into a true center of scholarship. Imagine the conversations taking place throughout the city. Students discussing lessons, teachers answering questions, scholars debating ideas. The exchange of knowledge never really stops. One person learns something new, then shares it with someone else. The cycle continues. The city becomes a living network of ideas. At the heart of this intellectual world stood great teachers and scholars. These men devoted their lives to study. They read manuscripts. They wrote books. They taught students. They preserved important knowledge. Many became highly respected throughout the region. People sought their guidance. their wisdom, their expertise. Imagine attending one of their lessons. Students sit quietly nearby. The teacher speaks calmly. Questions are asked. Thoughtful discussions follow. No one is rushing. No one is distracted by notifications from a phone. In fact, nobody has a phone at all. The students focus entirely on learning. It is a peaceful scene, one repeated thousands of times throughout the city's history. The subjects studied in Timbuktu were surprisingly diverse. Religion played an important role, of course. Many students studied religious teachings and law. But the learning did not stop there. People also explored mathematics, astronomy, medicine, history, language, geography, philosophy. The city encouraged intellectual curiosity. Imagine a student studying the stars, looking upward at the night sky, learning how celestial bodies move, learning how travelers navigate using constellations, learning how observation can reveal patterns in the universe. Or imagine a historian preserving stories from earlier generations, recording important events, protecting knowledge that might otherwise disappear. Every subject contributed something valuable. Every lesson expanded understanding. And slowly, year after year, Timbuktu's reputation grew. Travelers carried stories across continents. Merchants mentioned the city in distant markets. Scholars spoke of its libraries. Students spoke of its teachers. The world began to take notice. People who had never visited Africa heard about Timbuktu. Some were amazed. Others were surprised. Many had never imagined such a center of learning existed in West Africa. Yet it did, and it thrived. This reputation became one reason Timbuktu entered history. The city challenged assumptions. It reminded people that great centers of knowledge can appear anywhere. Wisdom is not limited by geography. Learning is not owned by one culture. Curiosity belongs to everyone. And Timbuktu became proof of that truth. Perhaps that is why the city's story remains so important today. Because it reminds us of the power of knowledge. Gold can enrich a kingdom. Knowledge can transform a civilization. Gold can build walls. Knowledge can open minds. Gold can create wealth. Knowledge can create opportunity. Mansa Musa understood this. That is why he supported education. That is why he welcomed scholars. That is why he invested in learning. He knew that knowledge was one of the greatest treasures his empire could possess. As the evening deepens, imagine yourself walking through Timbuktu one final time. Lanterns glow beside quiet streets. Students continue reading by candlelight. Teachers prepare tomorrow's lessons. Libraries rest beneath the stars. The city feels peaceful, thoughtful, wise. The pages of countless manuscripts wait patiently on their shelves. The ideas they contain continue traveling through time, from teacher to student, from generation to generation, from the past to the present. The stars shine overhead. The lantern light flickers softly. A page turns somewhere in the distance, and the city of knowledge continues its quiet work beneath the peaceful African sky. Chapter 16. The richest man in history. The night is quiet over the empire of Mali. The Niger River reflects the stars above. A soft breeze moves across the water. The cities rest peacefully. The libraries of Timbuktu grow silent. The markets have closed for the evening, and somewhere beneath the moonlit sky, people still tell stories about Mansa Musa. Stories about his pilgrimage, stories about his kingdom, stories about his incredible wealth. Tonight, we arrive at one of the most famous questions in history. Was Mansa Musa truly the richest man who ever lived? It is a question that has fascinated historians for many years. And the answer is both simple and complicated. Because when we talk about wealth, we are really talking about much more than gold. So let us settle beside the fire, listen to the gentle sounds of the night, and explore the story of the man many consider the richest ruler in human history. By now, the name Mansa Musa has become famous. His journey across the Sahara amazed travelers. His arrival in Cairo became legendary. His generosity became the subject of stories told across continents. Wherever merchants traveled, people talked about the king from Mali, the king with the golden caravan, the king who seemed to possess endless wealth, the king who gave away so much gold that people were still talking about it years later. But just how rich was he? That is where things become interesting. Today, people often measure wealth using numbers. Millions, billions, trillions. We enjoy placing everything neatly into charts and rankings. Who is the richest? Who is second richest? Who moved up 3 places this year? Modern society loves a good list. History, however, is not always cooperative, especially when it comes to measuring wealth from 700 years ago. Imagine trying to calculate the exact value of an empire. Not just the gold, but the land, the trade routes, the farms, the cities, the resources, the people, the influence. Suddenly the math becomes much more difficult. And probably not the kind of math most people want to do before bedtime. Still, historians agree on one thing. Mansa Musa controlled an enormous amount of wealth, possibly more than any individual ruler in history. The Empire of Mali sat at the center of major trade networks. It controlled valuable resources, especially gold. A great deal of the world's gold passed through West Africa during this period, and much of that wealth flowed through Musa's empire. Imagine standing beside one of Mali's busy trade routes. Caravans move steadily through the landscape. Gold travels north, salt travels south. Merchants exchange goods. Taxes support the kingdom. Trade generates prosperity. Every road seems to lead toward opportunity. The empire's wealth came from many sources, and Musa stood at the center of it all. This is one reason his riches became legendary. People saw evidence with their own eyes. The caravan crossing the Sahara, the gifts distributed in Cairo, the construction projects, the thriving cities. These were visible signs of prosperity. No imagination required. The wealth was real, and it was extraordinary. As stories spread, the legends grew. Travelers returned home describing what they had seen. Merchants repeated the stories. Scholars recorded them. Mapmakers even began including images of Mansa Musa on their maps. Imagine that for a moment. A king becomes so famous that people draw him holding a piece of gold on maps of the world. That is a remarkable reputation. Most of us would be happy if people simply spelled our names correctly. Mansa Musa ended up on medieval maps. His fame stretched far beyond Africa, far beyond Mali, far beyond the places he personally visited. The stories traveled farther than the king ever could. Yet there is an important lesson hidden within all this wealth. Because while people remember the gold, gold alone does not explain Musa's influence. Many rulers throughout history possessed wealth. Some possessed enormous wealth. Yet most are not remembered in the same way. Why? Because wealth itself is not enough. What matters is what people do with it. Musa used his resources to strengthen his kingdom. He supported education. He encouraged learning. He invested in cities. He welcomed scholars. He built institutions that continued serving people long after his lifetime. Those actions created a lasting legacy. Imagine two rulers. One spends every resource on personal luxury. The other invests in schools, libraries, and communities. Both may be wealthy, but history often remembers them differently. Musa understood that leadership required more than collecting treasure. It required vision, the ability to imagine a better future, and then work toward creating it. This may be the most impressive part of his story. Not the gold itself, but how he used it. Because wealth can create opportunities, but leadership determines what happens next. As the years passed, Musa's reputation continued growing. Visitors admired Timbuktu. Scholars praised the educational institutions. Merchants respected the trade networks. Travelers carried stories of Mali to distant lands. The empire became known not only for wealth, but for culture and learning. That transformation mattered. The gold helped attract attention. The achievements helped sustain it. Imagine walking through Timbuktu during its golden age. Students study by lantern light. Teachers share knowledge. Libraries preserve manuscripts. Merchants conduct business. Families build their lives. The city feels vibrant, alive, growing. This is part of Musa's true legacy. Not piles of treasure, but opportunities created through wise leadership. Of course, no ruler is perfect. History rarely gives us perfect heroes. Every leader faces challenges. Every leader makes mistakes. Every leader leaves behind a complicated story. Yet Mansa Musa's accomplishments remain remarkable. 700 years later, people still speak his name. They still discuss his journey. They still marvel at his wealth. And they still study the civilization he helped strengthen. That alone tells us something important. His influence endured. As evening settles over Mali, imagine standing beside the Niger River. The moon reflects upon the water. The stars shimmer above. The empire rests peacefully beneath the night sky. Somewhere nearby, a student reads a manuscript. A merchant prepares for tomorrow's journey. A family gathers beside a fire. Life continues. The river continues flowing, and the story of Mansa Musa continues flowing with it. The richest man in history. Perhaps the most influential, wealthy ruler in African history. Certainly one of them. But beyond the gold lies something even more valuable. A lesson. A reminder that wealth can build roads. It can build cities. It can build schools. But only wisdom can turn prosperity into a lasting legacy. And that may be the greatest treasure Mansa Musa ever left behind. Tonight, the river flows quietly beneath the stars. The gold has long since passed into history. But the story remains. And the reputation of the king from Mali continues shining like gold beneath a peaceful African sky. Chapter 17. The Legacy of Mansa Musa. The night is calm over West Africa. The Niger River flows quietly through the darkness. The stars shimmer above the water. A gentle breeze moves through the grasslands. The great caravans have long since completed their journeys. The markets have grown quiet. The lanterns of Timbuktu glow softly beneath the moonlight. And somewhere, a storyteller sits beside a fire, sharing the story of a king whose name has survived for centuries. Mansa Musa, the ruler of Mali, the king whose wealth amazed the world, the pilgrim whose journey became legendary, the leader whose influence continues long after his lifetime. Tonight we reach the final chapter of his story. Not the end of his life, but the beginning of his legacy. Because some people leave behind buildings, some leave behind treasure, some leave behind stories. Mansa Musa left behind all three, and more. As always, settle in comfortably. Imagine yourself beside the Niger River beneath a sky filled with stars. Listen to the gentle flow of the water. And let us follow the river of history as it carries Mansa Musa's memory forward through time. By the time Musa's reign came to an end, Mali had become one of the most respected empires in the world. Its trade routes stretched across vast distances. Its cities flourished. Its scholars attracted students from many lands. Its markets connected Africa with distant regions. Its reputation traveled farther than any caravan. The empire had become a beacon of prosperity and learning. And much of that growth had taken place under Musa's leadership. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about influence is that it often continues long after a person is gone. Imagine tossing a pebble into a calm river. The splash lasts only a moment, yet the ripples continue spreading outward. Farther and farther, touching places the pebble itself never reaches. Mansa Musa's life worked much the same way. His actions created ripples that continued moving through history. Across Africa, stories about Mali continued spreading. Merchants spoke about its wealth. Travelers described its cities. Scholars praised its centers of learning. The empire became known far beyond its borders. And because of that, many people around the world learned about West Africa for the first time. One of the most fascinating examples of this influence appeared on maps. Yes, maps. Now, maps are usually not famous for being exciting. Most maps spend their days quietly helping people avoid getting lost. But some medieval maps included something extraordinary. An image of Mansa Musa himself. Imagine being a mapmaker in Europe hundreds of years ago. You hear stories about a wealthy African king. Again and again, from merchants, from travelers, from scholars. Everyone seems to be talking about him. Eventually you decide he belongs on your map. So you draw him, seated upon a throne, holding a piece of gold, a symbol of his kingdom's immense wealth. One of the most famous examples appeared in the Catalan Atlas of 1375. There he was, Mansa Musa, displayed for the world to see. Think about that for a moment. 700 years ago, a king from West Africa became so famous that people included him on maps of the known world. That is not something that happens every day. Most rulers are remembered by their own people. Musa became known across continents. His image helped introduce Mali to people who would never visit Africa themselves. The stories continued spreading, generation after generation, even after the empire changed, even after new rulers emerged, even after centuries passed. People remembered the king who crossed the desert with mountains of gold. Yet his legacy was never only about wealth. The gold captured attention. The gold made headlines. If medieval newspapers had existed, they probably would have written things like, "Local king accidentally changes economy with generosity." Gold everywhere. Merchants confused. Experts recommend slightly less gold next time. History sometimes writes its own comedy, but beneath the famous stories lies something deeper. Musa showed the importance of vision. He understood that wealth alone was not enough. A ruler could collect treasure, but what happened afterward mattered far more. He invested in learning. He invested in cities. He invested in people. He invested in the future. That may be why historians still discuss him today. Not simply because he possessed gold, but because he used his resources to strengthen his kingdom. The libraries of Timbuktu became part of that legacy. The schools became part of that legacy. The mosques became part of that legacy. The scholars became part of that legacy. The students became part of that legacy. His influence spread through generations of people who continued building upon the foundations he helped create. And perhaps that offers an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest achievements are not measured by what we keep. They are measured by what we leave behind. Imagine standing beside the Niger River as the sun begins to set. The water reflects shades of gold and orange. The current moves steadily forward. The river never stops flowing. Generation after generation, it continues its journey. History often works the same way. People come and go. Empires rise and fall. Yet ideas continue moving forward. Wisdom continues moving forward. Knowledge continues moving forward. And so does inspiration. The story of Mansa Musa continues inspiring people today. Students study his life. Historians explore his achievements. Travelers visit places connected to his story. And listeners like you continue hearing about the remarkable civilization he helped strengthen. That is the power of legacy, the ability to continue influencing the world long after one's lifetime has ended. As night settles fully across the landscape, imagine the stars reflected in the river. The same stars that shone above ancient Mali, the same stars that watched caravans cross the Sahara, the same stars that shone above Timbuktu's libraries, the same stars that guided pilgrims toward Mecca. They still shine tonight, quiet, steady, timeless. And beneath them, the story of Mansa Musa continues flowing like the river itself, not rushing, not fading, simply moving forward through history. A king remembered for his wealth, a leader remembered for his vision, a ruler remembered for his generosity. and a man whose legacy reminds us that the greatest treasures are often the ones that continue helping others long after we are gone. The river flows onward, the stars shine above, and the memory of Mansa Musa continues its journey through time. Ending credits section. Good night from the Golden Empire. The night is peaceful now. The journey is complete. The fire burns softly beside us. The stars shine high above the African sky. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the Niger River continues its endless journey through the darkness. The waters flow steadily. The desert rests quietly beneath the moonlight. The cities sleep. The markets are silent. The libraries of Timbuktu grow still. And the story of Mansa Musa gently comes to its end. Tonight, we have traveled a very long way together. We crossed rivers, we crossed deserts, we visited great cities, we followed ancient trade routes, we listened to stories carried across centuries, and we spent time with one of the most fascinating rulers in history. Now, as the evening grows deeper and sleep begins to draw near, let us take one final walk through the Golden Empire of Mali. Slowly, peacefully, without hurry. Imagine yourself standing once more beneath the stars of West Africa. The sky stretches endlessly above you. The moon casts a soft silver glow across the land. A gentle breeze drifts through the night. Everything feels calm. Everything feels still. Far away, you can almost hear the soft footsteps of a caravan crossing the desert. The same caravan that once carried Mansa Musa toward distant lands. The same caravan that amazed the world. The same caravan that transformed a pilgrimage into a legend. The footprints have long since disappeared from the sand. The camels have long since completed their journey. Yet somehow the story remains. History has a way of preserving the things that matter. Not every detail, not every moment, but the important lessons often survive. And the story of Mansa Musa is filled with lessons. When we first began our journey, we explored the world before his rise. We discovered the fertile lands of West Africa, the rivers that supported life, the trade routes that connected distant cultures, the growing empire that would one day become one of the wealthiest in history. Then we met a young boy, a boy who listened to stories beside evening fires, a boy who learned from teachers, elders and travelers, a boy who could not yet know what the future held. One day, an unexpected opportunity arrived. The throne of Mali suddenly became his responsibility, and with that responsibility came choices, important choices. Because leadership is never only about power. Leadership is about service. It is about helping people thrive. It is about seeing possibilities and working toward them. Mansa Musa understood this. His empire expanded. Its cities prospered. Its trade flourished. Its people benefited from stability and opportunity. The roads became safer. The markets became busier. The kingdom became stronger. And then came the journey that made him famous. The pilgrimage to Mecca, the great caravan of gold, thousands of travelers moving across the Sahara, camels carrying treasure, stories spreading ahead of the caravan like desert winds. The journey amazed everyone who witnessed it, especially in Cairo. Poor Cairo, the city that received so much gold that historians are still talking about it centuries later. Imagine being the merchant who woke up one morning and realized the king from Mali had somehow managed to change the local gold market. That would certainly make for an interesting conversation at dinner. Yet beneath the famous stories lies something deeper. Generosity, faith, humility. Mansa Musa traveled not simply as a king, but as a pilgrim, a traveler seeking spiritual fulfillment, a believer following a sacred path. And when he returned home, he brought more than memories. He brought ideas, knowledge, vision. Scholars joined him. Architects joined him. Teachers joined him. And together they helped build something remarkable. The golden age of Mali. Schools expanded. Libraries grew. Mosques rose toward the sky. Learning flourished. Timbuktu became one of the great centers of knowledge in the world. Students arrived from distant lands. Books filled libraries. Ideas moved from teacher to student, generation after generation. Knowledge became one of Mali's greatest treasures, perhaps even greater than gold. Because gold can build a city, but knowledge helps that city endure. And that may be one of the greatest lessons Mansa Musa leaves behind. The importance of investing in people, the importance of learning, the importance of creating opportunities for future generations. His wealth made him famous. His vision made him unforgettable. Tonight, as we reflect on his life, we are reminded of something important. African history is filled with extraordinary stories. Stories of innovation, stories of learning, stories of leadership, stories of great civilizations. For far too long, many of these stories have remained hidden from too many people. Yet they deserve to be remembered. They deserve to be told. And they deserve to be celebrated. The story of Mali is one of those stories. The story of Timbuktu is one of those stories. The story of Mansa Musa is one of those stories. As the stars continue shining above the desert, imagine the Niger River flowing quietly beneath the moonlight. The water moves gently through the darkness, never rushing, never stopping, always moving forward. History often feels the same way. Generation after generation, story after story, the river continues. And now, before we say goodnight, let us carry a few peaceful thoughts with us into sleep. Take a slow breath. Relax your shoulders. Allow the calm of the evening to settle around you. And listen to these gentle affirmations. Like the river, may your journey be steady. Like the river, may your journey be steady. Like the river, may your journey be steady. Like Mansa Musa, may you use your gifts wisely. Like Mansa Musa, may you use your gifts wisely. Like Mansa Musa, may you use your gifts wisely. Like the stars above the desert, may your light shine far. Like the stars above the desert, may your light shine far. Like the stars above the desert, may your light shine far. May peace travel with you wherever life leads. May peace travel with you wherever life leads. May peace travel with you wherever life leads. The fire grows softer now. The desert grows quieter. The stars continue their silent watch above the world. The river flows gently through the darkness. And somewhere in the distance, The Golden Empire rests beneath the moonlight. Thank you for joining this journey. Thank you for walking beside the rivers, cities, libraries, and deserts of ancient Mali. And thank you for helping keep these stories alive. Now the night grows deeper. The fire fades lower. The stars shine softly overhead. And the story drifts peacefully into silence. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with golden rivers, peaceful skies, and the quiet wisdom of history.